Well, hello, folks out there on YouTube. Land got a big show lined up for you. Let's get right on into it. All right, can the playoff be fixed? There are a couple of possible ways. We're going to get into that, but obviously the first round didn't go very well. A lot of blowouts. Unfortunately, my team was one of them. Now, they're not taking as much grief because they were 10-2 in the SEC as far as deserving to be there, but when you get beat that badly by Ohio State, you're going to take some crap.
You don't talk to me like that. People are scared of me.
Why would anyone be scared of you? I hate you, you big fat turd.
Yeah, I don't think the NCAA has forgiven us for wrecking them in court several months ago.
Remember, you wanted this.
But anyway. Now, before I get too far into this, I do want to repair a mistake I made yesterday. I actually made two. One was mine, or the other one was an oversight. And boy, have I heard about it in the comment section. They have given me so much grief. Oh man, you make one mistake, that's bad enough. You leave something out, you're really going to get it.
Now Kane. Well, they're a tag team now.
Oh yeah, they came off the top rope. They used the chairs, whatever was necessary. But let's fix this mistake, and I'll show you what I did. I was showing you the NIL money and the teams. And the first mistake I made was a pretty simple one. Michigan's at number 7 with $16.3 million is what they spent last year. And this was supposed to be Michigan State. And I put Michigan in there. Now, to most people, they would think that's a pretty simple mistake. In Michigan land, oh no, you can't get those two teams confused. Believe that. The other mistake I made, you'll notice in here, do you see Notre Dame anywhere? Nope, I didn't have Notre Dame. In the list that I went by, Notre Dame wasn't included because they're not in a conference. And this was based on top conferences and money in NIL. And as you know, Notre Dame can't join a conference because they're super special and they can't be bothered with such things.
Well, Lottie frickin' da!
Yeah, but anyway, they're really high up there. Now I'm going to show you the corrected chart. All right, here it is. As you can see, Notre Dame was third in money. They spent $20.5 million. And that's called Friends of the University of Notre Dame, the fund it's called, which is a pretty good acronym. Oregon being number 1, Texas being number 2. Look, I've got Notre Dame in there. There's Ohio State. Notice where all 4 of these are ranked: Oregon, Texas, Notre Dame, Ohio State. When I show you the playoff, it'll interest you. And then, of course, all down the line, Tennessee's number 17, 11.6. If you'll remember, Indiana's at 13.6. You want to know how they got good so fast? They spent some money. They had 30 transfers in the portal, and I did fix Michigan State. And, of course, what I was showing was the NIL money directly reflects where they are in the playoff for the most part, and right here it is. As you can see, number 1, Oregon. They're the number 1 in NIL. Then you've got Georgia. They're in the top 5. Texas is in the top 5. Ohio State's in the top 5 in NIL, and there they all are. And Penn State's in there too. They were number 13, so they've actually done pretty well. They had a pretty easy route. Losing the Big 10 Conference Championship actually worked out really well for them. They got an easier road, which is irritating to Oregon, I'm confident. Yeah, Penn State had to beat SMU, and now they're going to play Boise State. How does Penn State luck up into that? But anyway, as you can see, all the teams that made it are the big NIL funders, except Boise State and Arizona State, and they're only in there because of socialism or communism, whichever you want to choose. So because we had all blowouts in the first round, people are upset. A lot of teams they didn't feel like deserved to be in there, and they want to fix it. It's not going to be easy because you're going to have to tell the group of 5 team, look, if you're not in the top whatever, you're not going to make it. And they may have to do something about the conference champions. Now, they're going to fix it one of 2 ways. And they'll do something probably about next year, and then in 2026, they'll make major changes. Now, the biggest thing I think they'll do, and this is probably the most acceptable to the Big 10 and the SEC, which are the 2 most powerful conferences. They could do the 2 and 12, which instead of 12-team playoff, they go to 14. The Big 10 SEC champions that win the conference championship get a bye, and they're 1 and 2, depending on how they were pre-ranked. Then the next 12 teams will all be at large, and they'll do top 6 of that versus bottom 6, and they'll play on the road. So that could happen. That's probably what Greg Sankey's going to do, and Petiti. They're probably just going to strong arm the other conferences, and they'll just have to learn to deal with it. Now, it's not going to go over well. They're going to yell and scream, but it'll go like this.
So what I'm gonna do is piss and moan like an impotent jerk and then bend over and take it up the tailpipe.
You've been here before, haven't you?
Yeah, Sankey's going to get his way, and so is Petiti, because they've got the power. And they've already kind of pushed people around, and they liked it. So I think Sankey and Petiti will do it again. Power's that way. It's a little bit intoxicating. Now, the other way to change this and to fix it would be to go to 16 teams, and you just take the top 16. This is going to be really tricky, even though it's the simplest way to do it. Forget all this socialist stuff, the conference championship. You take the top 16 after it's all said and done. You rank them 1 through 8, 9 through 16. 1 through 8 gets home court or home field. It's not tennis. And that way they get to play at home, and that's worth being in the top 8. And then they go from 16 to 8 to 4 to 2 to 1. It gives you 4 more big college playoff games, which is a lot more money, which they're going to need. I've talked to you quite a bit about how much money they're going to have to come up with the revenue sharing, which around $20 million a year for each team, and it's going to get rough. The other thing is people talk about NIL, and I just showed you all those NIL rankings. That's going to be on top, because you're not going to be able to say NIL doesn't exist, because the Supreme Court would knock that down. Any federal court would at this point. So, and also realize this is a settlement the NCAA is agreeing with all these class action lawsuits. So you know they're not going to agree to give up NIL. That's just extra money for the players. And it will also differentiate the teams. The teams won't mind, especially the big dog teams, because they want an advantage. Why should they give that up? If they all agree to spend the same amount of money, that takes away their advantage. So that's the way I would do it, is the top 16, and you can still protect the teams that play in the Power 4 conference championship games by saying if you are already pre-ranked in the top 16 and you play in that championship game, you can't get kicked out. They could do something along those lines. And if you win, you can get bumped up. I know they would have to get away from any buys to do 16. It's really a numbers game, because if you do buys in a 16-team championship, it doesn't work. Because if you do 2, then you've got 14, it's down to 7, then you got 9, that doesn't work mathematically. If you do 4, then you're 4, 12, 6, now you're at 10, that does not work either. It has to be a number that works from 16, 8, 4, 2, 1, or what we're doing now, which is 4 buys, down to 8, down to 4, 2, 1. It always has to funnel down through that little mathematical equation. So 16 is the answer. That's what I would do. And I would protect the conference participants in the championship game, and that would be it. Because if you win the conference championship, you're probably going to get put way up anyway, and you'll get home field advantage, and you'll get to play one of the worst teams. Now, that's not going to make everybody happy, but it's the fairest way to do it as far as the top 16 teams and getting the best teams in. Had we done that this year, Ole Miss gets in, South Carolina gets in, Alabama, obviously, they'd been first in, and Miami. All 4 of those teams would have been in, and you would have had a lot less complaining. You're never going to get rid of all the complaints, but that's just one way of doing it. And I do want to say one thing. My team, the Vols, have taken a lot of grief because we got whooped up on by Ohio State. And I explained to you, they got $8 million more than we do in NIL, and they've spent it. And jeez, is that a talented team. It's just, I'm telling you, that's the team. I'm picking them to win it all. I think they're going to go in there and beat Oregon on a neutral site. I think they're a different team. That's the best they played all year. And Tennessee actually wound up having a good victory against Florida. They were talking about, they only got the one good victory. They beat Alabama. Well, also beat Florida, and Florida's 8-5 now. And they dealt with injuries at the quarterback position. They had Georgia beat in Jacksonville. I'm going to tell you something. That Florida team's pretty darn good, and they're looking good for next year. And my biggest fear could happen. I had the worst thing that could happen to me this year. Shane Beamer won Coach of the Year, and that was incredibly difficult for me to tolerate, but it happened.
What the hell is the world coming to?
Yeah, it was pretty awful. But next year there is the possibility, and I don't know if I'll be able to handle this, that Billy Napier could wind up being Coach of the Year, because this DJ Lagway is darn good, and Florida's a pretty good team. And if he gets coach of the year, I'm going to lose it. We're talking about ain't got no gas in it guy.
It ain't got no gas in it.
Yeah, it's going to be very difficult for me. So football's difficult. It's very stressful, and it's just part of it, man. You got to take the good with the bad. So anyway, that's how I would fix it. And I know it's a little bit complicated, but going to the 16 would do it. That would fix it, and you'd get your best 16 teams and forget all this, you know, we're going to be socialists, we're going to be communists, we're going to put this team in and that team in because it makes them feel good. Just take the top 16. It's the way it is. And as far as NIL money, look, if you want to participate at the highest level, you're going to have to get your NIL up because, again, I'll show you. Right there it is, just plain and simple in black and yellow. Oregon's number 1, Texas number 2, Notre Dame number 3, Ohio State number 4, and there's Georgia at number 6. And they're all the best teams in the playoff right now. It's just that simple. Tennessee did pretty good. They were 17th. They made the top 12. So anyhow, that's my fixes. You may have another way of doing it, but that's what I would do. Anyway, if you like this content, be sure to hit that like button. Let's continue to cover all these big college sports stories. If you've not subscribed, hit this little button right here. It will not cost you one dime. Help you get my videos. And right over here is the most recent video. YouTube thinks you'll enjoy. We'll see you next time on Sports Talk Jay.
Merry Christmas! General!